Hello everyone and welcome to another episode of the Unity tutorial series. In this episode we're going to be animating our player. We're going to have some smooth animations here and it's going to look super cool, so you can do it in your game as well. I did a little refactoring here and I added this cloud platform per se using our tile palette and adding it to the background. So now let's go and create those animations. The first thing you want to do is you want to open the animation window. So you see how we have project, you have console, hierarchy, inspector. There is one in window animation that's called animation. This is what we're going to use to kind of create the animations. So I'm going to click drag and drop right here. I'm going to change this a little bit. I can close this for now. Just so it's a little bit easier to maneuver. This is a good tip that I got from another tutorial channel called Game Dev Experiments. Super good. I definitely recommend you checking it out. So now that we created this, I'm here under player and you can see this message. To begin animating player, create an animation clip. So let's click right here under assets. I created a folder already called animation, so you should create one as well. You double click there, and right there we're going to do an animation called idle left. So boom, you can see it in here that I created this animation called idle left. Now I'm going to click here in my character spreadsheet and I'm going to, it's a little small, sorry about that. So I'm going to find the left idle position or the left idle character, and let's go find it. Top and right here to the left, so apparently is the 35. I'm gonna click and I'm gonna drop it right here. So if I click play, you're gonna see that my little character moved to the left. Oops. I clicked I clicked outside of player. So yeah, let me play that again. Oh, and I also removed it for some reason. I pressed Ctrl Z, I'm sorry. Let me pull that back up. See, now I have it in here. This is my idle left animation for the player. So let's go ahead, click here and create a new one. And let's do idle right. So what our character will look like if he's idle in the right. So we're going to go in, we're going to find the right animation, click and drag right here. Same thing for idle up. And we're going to go up. We're going to find the idle up right here. The number 24, drag right here. And then we're going to create another one called idle down. Let's save. And the idle down, oh, I remember, it's on the top. It's, I think, the first one. Right here. Great. Now there are a couple more that we need to create. So this is for the idle positions. Now let's create the ones for moving. So I'm going to create the walk down animation. And I'm going to do this. So the walk down animation consists of 4 walking animations. Drag and drop right here. If I click play, for instance, I can see that I'm moving. I'm going like super fast. So the way I change this is by changing the samples rate right here. So if I move it to 6, you can see that I'm moving smoothly. If you don't see the sample rate, and that's also another good tip from Game Dev Experiments, you can click here on the tab right here and you can see the show sample rate. Great. So let's go back to the player. Let's create another one. So we created the walking down. Let's create the walk up. animation. And let's create the walk up animation. Looks a little tedious, I know. Let's find right here. So it's character 24, 25, 26, and 27. Drag and drop, hit play. That's good. Move it to 6 frames per 6, the samples rate to 6. You can see that it's moving right here. Done. So we did down, up. Let's create the walk left. And the walk left. Let's go find it. It's kind of like a treasure hunter at this point. There you go. 1, 2, so it's 35, 36, 37, 38. Drag and drop. Move the sample rate, and then, yep, seems like I'm moving correctly. Now let's create new clip, walk right, and right here, the walk right is the 13, 14, 15, 16. Done. Beautiful. All right, so now let's kind of adjust some of our animations and let's keep the setup going. So if I go on animation, I'm gonna see all of the things that I created, but also there is a special one called player. And this is basically what we want to set up. I'm gonna click here on setup. You're gonna see this animator tab. There is a lot to talk about in this, and there's a lot to explain. I think the best way is if I just do it, then I can kind of explain kind of what's going on. So first thing, let's delete all of this. And now let's create a new state called create state, and then from new blend tree. Let's name this idle. And let's double click on it. I went to my idle section right here. And this is basically where I'm going to add all of my idle animations. So in order to do that though, before I do it, I need to set up the blend type. So let's do it 2D simple directional, meaning there will be two variables, two parameters that will depend on in order to show which correct animation. So let me go here to parameters. Let me create a new float called move x, and then another new float called move y. These two are basically two variables that we're going to be using to determine which animation should be played. Let's add a couple of animations and I'll explain what that means. Under motion, we'll create a new motion feud. Actually, we'll create 4 real quick. Okay, done. For the parameters, we're going to use the first parameter as move x, and the second parameter we're going to use move y. For the motions here, we're going to add all of our idle animations. So idle down, idle left, idle right, idle up. And then for the position is basically telling, hey, depending on what position should we play this animation. So for the idle down, and the way, a good way to kind of think about it is, and let me pull up my whimsical just to show you so it makes sense. Let's go right here. Okay, now I feel like I can explain this. So, and I'm so sorry for this. I'm going to improve in this tutorial series, I promise. So the way it works is we're going to have move x and move y, and we're going to tell them values. Like for instance, if the move x equals 1 and the y value equals 0, right? So 0, 1, it means that my character should play the idle right animation. If x is equals -1 and my y is 0, I should play the idle left animation. If it's y equals 1 and x equals 0, I should play the move. I should play the idle up, and also if I do -1, it's going to be the idle down animation. So basically, this is what we're telling. Using the variables move x and move y, we're basically determining which animation to play. And this is going to work for our idle animation and for our walk animation and a bunch of other stuff. Okay, now I feel like I can go ahead the implementation. So for the position x, for idle down, we want to do x equals 0 and y equals -1. For idle up, we want x equals 0, y equal 1. For the left is -1, 0, that's correct. And then for right is 1, 0. See that even that got really well put. Meaning, if I, and I can even click here on player. If I move my x value to 1, it goes here. You can see it in here. Let me zoom in a little bit. You can see that the animations will be played correctly depending on what values I am adding. Okay, this looks good. This looks good. The player looks good. It has his animation controller right there. And now let's go in and just implement this to our script. So if I click on script, go to the player controller. Great, here's the player controller. Now I need to add a reference to this animator. So we'll go in, down here. Go here and do private animator, call it animator. And then we need to initialize this variable. Let's do it on the awake function. So if I hover over awake, in case you want to know more about it, and I definitely recommend you do, awake is called when the script instance is being loaded. So basically, as soon as I load my player, I'm going to run this, whatever is between these brackets. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to start the animation. I'm going to tell, hey, get the component animator from the player, and this is what we're going to be using in here. You can see my Visual Studio even gave me the suggestion already. So animator equals, then I can do the get component animator, and then boom, now my animator has been referenced. Now the second thing that I need to do is I need to give the values of move x and move y. So the way I do that is I could do animator dot set float, and I can call it move x, and for the second one I have to pass what am I going to be setting for. So it's going to be input.x. And similarly for the y, so what I'm basically saying is, hey, whatever the input is, make the move x equal to that input for x and the move y equal to the input for y, right? So that way, even if you want to test the system even, you could create something called a debug.log, which basically is going to print in the screen something. We can even do this. We can set the not screen, sorry, it's going to print in the console. Let's print the input.x. Let's do something like this. This is input.x. Then also I can do the same thing for input.y. So we're going to put it in the screen just so it makes a little bit more sense. And I think this is done. Let's save it and test our game. Let's see if we missed anything. Let's go see. Let's press go. Something is wrong. Let's figure what it is. All right, so the one thing that I did forget was to, instead of adding here on the is moving, we actually need to add this right here. So, and the mistake here is that instead of doing it every time that it is not moving, we need to set that up to only if the input is equal to something. Otherwise, it will always be setting up to 0, which would be bad. It would be always coming down for the sprite. So you have to set this up when you're checking if there is any input, and this should fix it, the little problem that we had. So let's go now and let's test our game. Oh, nice. Looks like we are moving correctly. Now, very simple, but let's go and finish this implementation. Let's go back to our animator, back to the base layer. And what we need to do now is let's create the walk animation. So create a state, blend new tree. I'm going to call this walk. Double click. Send this walk as well. The type is a 2D simple directional. The parameters will be move X and move Y. Very nice. We will add 4 motions. I'm going to click on our animation, go find our walk animations. Have our walk down, a walk left, walk right, walk up. Let's set those up. So if I'm walking down, y equals 1, minus 1. If I'm walking up, x will be equal to 0, y will be 1. Walking left, minus 1, 0, correct. And then walking right will be 1, 0. Okay, so this has been added. One more thing that we need to, though, is in order for us to call this, we need a variable that's going to say, hey, is this moving? If it's moving, we're going to play the walk animation. So let's go in, create a bool here under the parameters. We're going to call that is moving. Great. And then we're going to go back to the, right here, to the base layer. And we're going to create sort of a transition between idle and walk. So let me create this in here. And let's do it. So when I create a transition, basically what I'm saying is we're creating basically the connection. So once you'll get idle, something is going to trigger, which in this case will be is moving. So if it is moving, then we're going to go and use the walk animation. I don't know if that was the best way to explain it, and I'm so sorry. I'm really hoping to get better on these tutorials, but let me show you how that works. So yeah, we need a condition in order to switch from idle to walking. And for that, I'm going to use our notorious is moving. So if it's moving equal to true, so if we are going to be moving, right, then what I will do is I will walk and set that animation. So let's click this as has exit time, and then on settings, let's remove the transition duration. This is basically a little bit more advanced features, but we want to walk immediately after we hit or is moving is equal to true. So we don't want to do any transition duration, and also, we want to make things smoothly and immediately after. So that's why we do this. Similarly, we need to create a transition from walk to idle. And for that transition, we're going to also copy the same settings. And the condition here will also be if my is moving is equal to false. Okay, that should be it. The last thing we got to do, let's go back to our script and let's go to our player controller. The last thing we got to do is we need to set the animation for the animation variable is moving. We need to set that up here in the player. So the way to do that is right before the function right here. Let's go ahead, do animator dot set bool. It's going to be the is moving is equal to the is moving. Remember, is moving, we already have that, so I'm going to just double use it. Save, and let's run our project. One thing that I'm going to do is I'm going to click on the Windows layout. I'm going to do my Mauricio default right here. And now let's run the game, and hopefully it's going to work. And it looks like it's working. Oh, here are some tips for you. You can increase the scale right here. You can change the aspect to 16:9, which is most phones if you're doing a mobile game, etc. And also, if you want to even go a step forward, you can, actually let's cancel here, on the main camera, you can set the size bigger or smaller. So you can make this green look bigger or smaller. So like if you do 4, it's going to look a lot smaller. And since we're at it, let's take the camera and let's move it to the player. And let me move that. I can do like 0 here, position 0, 0. So whenever the player is moving, the camera is moving. It's a super cool little feature. So let's click here. And voila, look at us. We are walking and we have been animated. Oh, looks like we have a problem. Nice, good opportunity to debug. Looks like whenever I'm moving right, I am not actually playing that animation. So this is good. Let's go take a look at why this is happening. I have the animator here. Let's go open that up. Walk. Let's go to the walk animation. It was the walk right. So let's first take a look. From walking right, x equals y. So this should be running with no problems. Let me click here, and now let me click on here. Let's see the walk right animation. Let's drag that right here. Go player. Oh. Oh, we didn't set that up. We didn't add the walk right sprites. So for some reason that didn't work. Or maybe I pressed Ctrl Z. Good to debug. So a little bit of a debugging section right here. Let's move walk right to 6. Let's move this animation right here. And then let's go to our art. Let's move our player, character. So this is the walk right. I think I pressed Ctrl Z at one point and ended up removing that animation. There you go. There you go. So let's save the project and let's test it. Okay, there you go. Now we have everything working. I hope you know I try not to create too many versions of this. I don't want the happy path for those videos. I prefer to give you the raw, so it's a good opportunity for, you know, real in-time learning, how to debug, how to make sure if something happens, not just giving up, you know. So I'm happy that happened to us. So this is the video. Please, if you can, give me some feedback on the comments on how to improve. This has been a very long video, but I think this is a foundational thing. I try to explain as much as I can, but please give me some tips and some guidance. I'm new to this. I'm definitely learning on the way as well. So I really appreciate the support, and yeah, see you in the next video.